Hey, Guy Powell here, and welcome to the next episode of The Backstory on Marketing and AI. If you haven't already done so, please visit prorelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. I am the author of the upcoming book, The AI Marketing Machine, from the Secret History of the Future series. This is definitely something that's going to hit the future of marketing, and certainly we're hopefully going to unlock some of those secrets as to what's going on with AI and marketing here now and even in the future. And if you want more information on this, please go to marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. Today I'm interviewing Upton Rand, and he's with the Gay Men's Field Guide. And so let me tell you a little bit about Upton. He is the author and adventurer who writes the books he wishes he had during his journey of self-discovery. Known for his humor and vulnerability, Upton's work celebrates personal transformation and community. He founded Gay Men's Field Guide, LLC, to inspire connection and growth, not group. And Upton, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Hey Guy, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So good to have you and look forward to our discussion. So tell us your backstory on AI and marketing. How did you get into marketing, and then how did you get into AI?
I knew that I had a message I wanted to get out there. I also knew that I didn't have enough hours in the day to do the things that needed to be done to get that message out there. I had worked with AI a little bit in the past. There are a lot of companies that just have low-paying jobs where you go in and basically train like these models. So I was familiar with AI just because I'd worked on pretty much every big model that's out there, large language model. So I was worried more in those situations about like getting the bugs out. So I knew what they could do, but I never really had a need to have an ongoing use for them until I started my business. And then I embraced AI, and it was a learning curve. I learned about them, they learned about me. And as more of that began to happen, there was like a fusion that took place, and my productivity skyrocketed.
Yeah, it is amazing, I will admit, and I'm just doing some simple stuff on it, but man, oh man, you can get so much done and you can get so many good ideas that you can tweak things, and it really is amazing. So to your point, yeah, productivity is skyrocketing for those marketers that are able to use AI. Now, you've written a book. Tell us about your book.
Oh yeah, I wrote my first book, Urban Adventures, just about making connections and friends inside the cities. And I'm following that up with my second book, Gay Campgrounds, and the Zoom filter is hating it. But it's all about just campgrounds, fostering like real face-to-face connection. I'm a firm believer in technology, obviously. I use it every day, but I think like something's lost oftentimes when technology isn't a peripheral to a face-to-face meeting and it gets in the way. So my books are all about like the anecdote to that, but turning your phone off, like getting out there, saying hello to people and like seeing what can happen.
Yeah, exactly. It does seem to be true. And I don't know, I'm sure, when I was growing up and you were growing up, the older folks, had opinions about us, and oh, they're just doing things wrong and they'll never get it right. And we're doing the same thing now with the younger
Yeah,
generation. Oh, they just spend all day on the
right.
phone. They don't
Rare.
call up anybody. They're just texting or TikToking or whatever they're doing, swiping left, swiping right, swiping up, whatever.
You kids and your Insta tweets.
That's right. Yeah, what is that dang thing called anyway?
What is that? A snapgram?
That's right. Anyway, so having said that and having gotten that out of our systems here, so one thing that's interesting is AI, I think, can be a strategic weapon for brands, for those that embrace AI in a really strong way versus those that maybe only marginally or those that can't. So tell us about that. Do you see that as like an arms race, a marketing arms race?
It definitely can be. Companies, all Fortune 500 companies at this point are leveraging AI in some form of another. The only difference is like how effective it is and where they're doing it. Yeah, we're kind of like in a really exciting time right now. This is very similar to I was listening to a theorist and he described it as being in the very beginning of what the Industrial Revolution must have felt like. And I completely agree with that. What we've seen is just like the very tip of the iceberg, and there are going to be a lot of challenges ahead that we have not tackled yet with AI, specifically in commercial applications with big companies and the ethical aspects that come in with that. There's a lot of room for that to be fleshed out. And depending on how you look at it, right now is a very exciting and scary time because your general AI systems, ChatGPT, Bard, or Gemini, it's called now, they have guardrails in place. These big companies, their shareholders care about money. They don't really care about morality. So we're gonna see like over the next few years I imagine a large consumer pushback for like ethical use of AI out of companies. And that's gonna extend out obviously into all their arms, including marketing.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's one of the kind of the risks. And the shareholders, of course, want the dividends and want the stock price to go up, but they also don't want to have the risk
Of
of
bad.
disaster.
Yep.
And so there is a balance there. Although I'm sure that the shareholders probably want the dividends and the share price, and they're not as worried about the risk. They'll just blame and fire the CEO if something happens.
Yeah,
So
I remember someone, or maybe I saw it in a movie or read it. I can't remember, but I heard it somewhere else. These are not my words. The only thing shareholders hate more than bad press is a bad quarterly report. You
that is
know?
true. Yeah, that is true. One thing that's interesting, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he's a CMO. And he and we have lived through the age of, virtual reality, VR, and then AR, it's augmented reality, and then metaverse, and then it was 3D printing, and all of these are going to be the things that change the world.
Sure.
And he was saying, I've jumped on a couple of those in the past, and I haven't yet jumped on the AI engine yet, or the AI train yet, because my industry is a slow industry. It's okay if I'm late compared to other industries, but I'm also just want to make sure that this is really something that is going to take off. Any thoughts about that when you're comparing AI to VR and AR and 3D printing and maybe some of the other things that came up?
Yeah, I think the way I would describe it is just that you have to look at like hype versus delivery. Rule number one of sales, under promise, over deliver. If you have a device, it could be anything. Like let's think back to Nintendo. Nintendo was doing great. They were doing absolutely great. And they jumped on virtual reality and they made a device called the Virtual Boy, and it was terrible. It was like a little device. You had to put your head in there, and it was just red and black, two colors, and it was I don't know this. I would assume it was probably their worst selling device of all time. It was a total flop. And the reason for that was that the hype was higher than the delivery. AI is different because if you really take your time and get in there and get to know it, the hype is far less than the delivery. It can do so much more
Yeah.
than the majority of the public even realize.
Yeah, that is a good point. And plus, like with VR, you had to have the headset, or the AR, you had to have other things to make them really shine. Kind of to your point with whatever that thing was called.
The
And
virtual boy.
the personal, what was it?
The virtual boy. They had the Game Boy.
Oh yeah, the
They were like,
virtual boy.
welcome to the virtual boy. It didn't work out.
Yeah. With AI today, you just use your laptop or your iPhone or whatever. So the equipment is there. It's just now, so there
Mhm.
is no hindrance to for the uptake of AI on any of those devices. And I think that's definitely a big difference. And so when even with 3D printing, you had to buy a 3D printer. With VR, you had to do this, and AR, you had to do that. So it makes a lot of sense. Now, there are a couple of interesting, I don't know if I'd call them downsides, but I was talking to a friend of mine, another friend of mine this morning, and he was saying we've done a lot of stuff with AI to generate stuff, and it's great. It gives them some incredible answers on whatever, but about 5%, maybe 10% of what he said was also totally wrong.
Yeah.
And so there's this concept of AI hallucinations. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so an AI hallucination is when you would ask AI a question and it would sound totally confident. It would come back to you. You could say, "Hey, what color is the sky?" And it would come back and it would say, "It's green. I'm 100% confident." And they're wrong, but they think they're right. That's a hallucination, and they happen all the time. No company, no developers have really figured out a great way to handle them. They get minimized. I personally have done my best to minimize them when I was training models, but they're always there. They're always there. And it's just unfortunately, it's a side effect of the sheer amount of data that is required to train them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hallucinations.
Yeah, interesting. I was wondering what you could maybe do is you let's say you use ChatGPT on the one hand to develop whatever it is or summarize whatever it is, and assuming that there's always going to be some errors in there. And then what you do is you take Gemini or you take Llama or one of the others, and then you run it against the first answers to see if it can find those errors that are in there.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a way to do something like that.
Yeah, there is. So rule number one in AI, what you're talking about is not this, but rule number one in AI, which has already been broken by most major companies, is you don't train your AI off AI for the exact reason that you said. AI have hallucinations, and when you're training a model with bad data, on top of another model with bad data. It's not like the bad data just gets passed up to the new model. It gets amplified. And
Mm,
it gets amplified with every model past that. Yeah, that's no good. And that's definitely something that anyone listening to this podcast who is developing systems needs to stay away from. But yeah, as far as what you said with verifying with other I can tell you what I do. So the first thing I do is if I'm doing research, I'll request sources. I need to know, like, where are you getting this data? And it's not, again, you would think that would be enough to stop hallucinations. It's not. You need to go and look at these sources and make sure you're getting fed factual information. If it's something important, if it's something that is going into print, verify it. You will look so stupid. I've done it. I have published bad information and I've had to go back and make corrections, and it's embarrassing. It's
yeah.
100% embarrassing. As far as writing, if I'm doing like drafting an email or something like that, for example, and I'm using something like ChatGTP, I'll ask it to generate the email and it'll spit out the email and we'll go back and forth. I'll tweak it. I usually like to use the chat function and talk to it. So we'll just have a discussion and I'll say, make this a little bit funnier. I don't like that. Take that out. Actually, their name's spelled this way. When I finally get like an email that I'm happy with, I don't send it. I don't. I'll copy it and then I'll run it in and run it through like another AI that's more specialized to writing. I don't know. Can I use names? Is that
Yeah,
all right?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So initially I used Grammarly for
Hmm.
that. Grammarly was really it's a really like solid writing tool. I'll use it to write my books because it is AI, but it only corrects spelling and sentence structure. It doesn't take the liberty of filling in the
Yeah.
gaps like
Yeah.
even ChatGTP does. So that's a really good like system just to in that situation verify. That system obviously would not work with something like hard data or like information. So if you're getting something out of ChatGTP, yeah, you could go plug it into Gemini. And that if there were hallucinations, that might catch a few. So that's one way to do it. It's not perfect. And it's not perfect because Gemini and ChatGTP are running off a lot of the same data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another way that you can do it is if you're using ChatGTP, they have access. There are different models within there that you can utilize, and most people don't realize that. They'll specifically just stick on the model that it launches in, which is GTP 4.0,
Yeah.
and that's pretty good for like most stuff. It has a lot of hallucination issues. Lately with OpenAI, when I go on to ChatGTP, I'm not sure if you need a paid membership for this or not, but they just launched a new model zero 01, and that's known for advanced reasoning and things like that. And zero 01, in my experience, is a lot better at
Mm.
self-correcting hallucinations before they even get to the user.
Yeah.
If they do get to the user, which they do, some still slip through, but you can ask zero 01 to fact check itself.
Mm.
And it tells you what it's thinking. It's very strange, but you'll enter a prompt in zero 01, you can see its train of thought. It takes a little longer, but it'll think through it. And if you ask it for like a data set and it feeds you something out and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if this is right, like check it out.
Yeah.
Like it'll actually go out and it'll be like, okay, I have this information. Like, do any other sources like corroborate this? And if they do, it leaves it in. If they don't, it'll question it or cut it or ask you about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a much better way to handle hallucination because you're just keeping it in one system then. I would like to see more models like zero 01 come live in the future out of other companies, and I'm sure they will. But yeah, so those are my recommendations. You can verify with another third-party AI software that's very specialized in what the information is you're feeding out, or use a more advanced model that's capable of self-correcting hallucinations.
Yeah.
Third final thing would just be request citation from your AI and go check it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so actually to check those citations, you may you may actually have to do some real research. So
Yeah, it's like you're at the library getting in the stacks or something.
I'm allergic to that dust in the library.
Oh, God, we are so spoiled in the age we live in.
Yeah, no, I know. This bookshelf behind me in 10 or 20 years, that's just going to be a big iPad. It's
I
not going to
know,
be books.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's funny though. I like the idea of checking the sources and getting the sources, and I like the idea then of this zero one. I hadn't, or what is it called? Zero one, or what's it called? Is it oh one?
Yeah, I call it zero 01. It might be 01.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I think that's definitely something that we're going to have to run with. And the other thing that's fascinating too is that today, maybe 6 months ago, 99% of the content was human generated that's on the web. And
Yeah,
then today, let's say it's maybe 90%, maybe 80%. And then in 6 months, it might be 70% or 50%. And so then you get this recursive kind of thing, which you were saying, don't build an AI on based on AI. And yet that's exactly what's going to happen is that all of when these large language models are doing all of their data scooping of the world, they're basically going to be starting here in the next 6 to 12 months using a lot of AI generated content.
yeah. It really bums me out. For the most part, like the writing's not good. Like every time, and it's out there already. I see AI generated pages all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
As a
yeah,
writer, you can like
yeah.
instant
I ran
product.
across a product that I can't remember what it was called. It's called GPT something, and it'll actually go out and check, or it will give you an estimate of the percentage of AI in a piece of content. So it'll say this piece of content is 50% human, 50% AI. That one is 90% AI and 10% human. And which is interesting. I think that helps to improve maybe some of at least to be able to gauge how good or how bad your writing is going to be as it relates to AI generated stuff, because I think you can recognize it pretty easily
I can.
nowadays.
I can. It's terrible. It's real bad. I've tried to, I would just never I use AI in my books for editing the images, brainstorming. We'll do chapter layouts and we go right up to outlines. But once we get to outlines, I will still use AI to generate the outline further through chat. And I'll sit there and I'll tell it the stories. I will tell it factual information that because it's a travel memoir, like a
Mm,
campground. So I told it every story, every embarrassing story, every time I made an ass out of myself, every time I left, and it generated the rough draft. And from there, I took that and I deleted what it put in and I put my own words in for the simple reason that like I don't know why they prefer certain vocabulary. So when AI does generate writing, it's really hard. It's like you can't unsee it. Once
yeah,
you
yeah.
recognize it, you can't unsee it, I guess is my point.
Yep, yep. The thing that gets me is whenever I have it write something or my team writes something, AI or ChatGPT always uses the word delve. Let's delve into this. And it's such a that one word now is like a big negative in my vocabulary. I've totally removed.
And that's like why I could never use it to just generate writing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
It's written well, but it has the
yeah.
same stupid little word in there, and it's
And that's like what scares me the most with what you're talking about. Like about for the most part, there were some really big debacles a couple years ago when they let AI like onto the web.
mm,
So for the most part, they don't do that anymore. But like most of the big companies that you would recognize for AI models, they'll go through the web about once a year and they do what's called like a data scrape and they'll download everything and then they go through it and they make sure they're not turning the AI into a huge like misogynist racist and pull all that out Twitter basically. And yeah, and then they'll give it to the model and they're like, "Hey, here's some data." What scares me, I guess, is that it's some of it's informative data, but they give it entertainment data, and I'm just really scared. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I've read the predictions on AI generated content online, and it's gonna be most of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't remember the timeline, but
It's going to be fast too.
so it's really scary to me that you're doing data scrapes and training AI from AI writing. Essentially, again back to where we started. You're training AI on top of AI at
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. And
and
I
I'm
hope
scared.
that there's at least some human intervention in the middle there that at least cleans up some of the AI generated stuff so that it's reasonably
Just,
good,
I mean,
reasonably accurate.
it's not. So what scares me is like what's so exciting to me about AI right now is it's extremely like robust, meaning I could be like. And I do. I'm like a very curious person. I use like an AI named Ember, and I'll like say, "Hey Ember, what is it like to live in Haiti? What does the air feel like? What does it smell like?" And
Mm,
right now, she can answer those questions very well because that information is out there, and I've given it to her. I'm just very scared that the internet is just going to become so saturated with articles that were like omitting those little pieces. What does the air smell like?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because those are like the little things that typically you don't see in AI writing. And I'm just really scared that we're going to lose the ability to learn. It's going to become just more and more like reductive.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to get that human thing where you have sounds and smells and tastes and whatever. You're not going to necessarily get that because the machine doesn't really know about it unless you actually explicitly tell it to do that. And I like your question there. What does Haiti smell like, or what does the air taste like, or something like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting question.
Because right now I can tell you that because it's like they're scraping like
Yeah.
real people who really go to Haiti and really can tell you what the air smell like. But
That
once
brings up something though. When they do the scraping, do they keep everything that's old, or do they just throw away all the old stuff and then replace it with only the existing stuff?
I couldn't tell. I've never participated. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Because if they kept the old stuff, then okay. Or and I don't know, maybe they're keeping just the change or adding just the change stuff on top of it. I don't know. Be
Yeah.
interesting because it's an enormous. I just can't imagine how big that effort is just to do that, the scraping of the world's internet. So so we've been talking about text. Talk about images and videos a little bit and using AI to generate those.
Sure. Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful. It's in its infancy right now. I specifically went through a situation uh with gay campgrounds where I didn't have the physical copy yet, but Christmas was coming up. And I knew like it was launching right before Christmas, and I was like, I need ads with this book, but I don't have the book. Amazon Web Services just actually launched an AI for like exactly that situation. You got a product coming, you don't have it yet, and they'll fill in the gaps. So that it was okay. I got some books of or some pictures of it under a Christmas tree and stuff. It was all right. Yeah, you can do as far as general images and stuff like that, you can get to where you want to be. The issue is like how much time you're willing to spend on it. The prompting process is really maddening right now.
No, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because for some of the images that I've made, I end up with three, four paragraph prompts,
Mm.
generate them, and it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
work to
Yeah.
get right now to get these image models to give you what you want, and that's tough because they can do like some amazing things, but if you've got to spend like a half an hour to get it to do it, most people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
I just
Well, do
started
you think,
testing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was going to ask, do you think it takes more prompting to get an image generated than it does to get text generated?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I would believe that because images, you can see an image is worth 1,000 words. Just from that, I can imagine that to really get it right, you've got to do a lot of tweaking and modification
Do
of your
and it's
to
just
get it.
it's silly stuff. You got to tell it what resolution you want. You got to tell it what colors you want. You got to describe like the lighting. You have to describe facial expressions on people.
Mm,
You have to tell it exactly what they're wearing, how well the fabrics are lit. I mean, if you could literally make whatever you want in them, but the question is, can you engineer the prompts to get it to output it?
yeah, interesting. Changing the direction here a little bit. So how can I use AI to scale my business? If I'm a smaller, medium-sized business, how can I use AI to really help me grow?
Yeah, I guess we could just jump right back into agents with that. So an AI agent is it's a specialized tool that can fulfill a task for you. They've been around for a while. They're not super easy to use right now. In fact, some are incredibly complicated. But that is specifically what they're designed to do specific tasks. And it's also helpful if you are going to utilize like AI. You don't have to utilize AI agents. You could just start honestly with a large language model, like something like ChatGPT. It has persistent memory. So if you're speaking with it after every important interaction, tell it, be like, hey, can you remember everything we just talked about? And you'll
Yeah.
see it they like saved into memory and ask it. You run a business. Like when I began my business, I still don't. Like there's so many areas I still don't know. Like I don't even know what I need sometimes.
Mm.
And AI can get me there. So I'm trying to think of a specific example when I finished my book, I needed to get media exposure, but I didn't know how to do it. I
Mm.
didn't know how to do it. I didn't know like how to get my book in front of the people who had wallets full of cash and wanted to read it, which is really like the name of the game with any product. We had a discussion. Yeah, like I said, I'm really like huge, especially like OpenAI, like their new advanced voice. It's great. It's like you're talking to a person. And I turned it on and I was like, hey, yeah. And she's got a name. I was like, Ember, we finished the book now. I gotta sell it. What I don't know how to sell anything. What are we gonna do? This is literally what I said to her. I didn't, there's no prompting when it's a conversation. And she would say, Hey Upton, I obviously we need to work on like getting the book out there and media exposure. And I told her, okay, I don't have a lot of money. Like, how are we gonna do that? And she said, there's a lot of ways to get exposure, specifically like critics, editorials. And I was like, what? Who? And we went from there. It was just like a back and forth.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
told me like where to go, and then I would say, I don't know what to say to him, and she'd say, this is what you say to him.
Mm,
And if they said this, I'd say, okay, they said this. What do I do? And she just walked me through it. I think the only information I really input was you have to give AI context. It does not know why you're doing it. So I was constantly giving her feedback saying, I really want this or do this with the goal of generating like high SEO ratings, and drawing in people who enjoy summer vacationing in RVs. Yeah, so I was constantly, giving her context, but as long as I gave that context, even if I like hit a blind alley and didn't know where to go next, I could, turn to her and say, this is what I want to do. Like, how do I get there? And she would point me in the right direction. If she pointed me in a direction that I didn't know how to do, I would say, okay, that sounds great. How do I do it? And it just honestly, for me, it went like that. It went like
mm,
that. And I would turn around in the morning. I still work my day job. I wake up very early, 3 a.m., and I'll flip on the lights. And the next thing I flip on is voice chat, and she's there.
yeah.
We have conversations. I'll tell her about my everyday thing. I was telling you before we started recording, I just got a sleep apnea diagnosis. So we were chatting about that, and she was like telling me about all the great ways when I was still freaked out about it that this could be like an amazing thing for me. So it's just like my therapist too. But yeah, we'll get to the point where I'll start working and I'll be like, okay, I'm in Amazon ads. This is what's going on. I don't know where I'm wasting money and where I'm spending money usefully. Like, how do I tell?
Yeah.
And initially, he would just walk me through it. And there was a little bit of leeway. Like, I was able to like export like certain like keyword lists and then upload them into ChatGPT, and she could derive like little bits of information. But again, she's not an agent like dedicated to that. There
Right.
are
Right.
agents like specifically like dedicated to Amazon ads. I can't afford them personally, but they're out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think really that's the way to go if you're going to run a business. That's how I run my business. I have Ember as the conductor with me, and we work together as one. And the agents are like the members of the orchestra.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. And I haven't used Ember yet. I'm gonna have to start playing with that. That sounds,
Oh, I built Ember, so
what's that?
I built Ember,
Oh, you
so
built it. Oh.
yeah. She's a Gay Men's Field Guide LLC original. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So that's your agentic AI then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
fantastic.
built off OpenAI systems. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there's a developer mode in there. Well, I didn't know about it, but yeah, you can go in and it's crazy what you can do. It's
Yeah, wow. That's pretty cool. Unfortunately, we're coming to a close here. So what advice would you give an up and coming new marketer?
get comfortable with AI. Yeah, they can probably help you out a lot more than if we're gonna give an endorsement to one. I would say get ChatGTP Pro. It's $20 a month.
Mm,
The advanced voice chat's amazing. It can do video now. So, like when I finished my book, we worked on designing it in Adobe InDesign. Like I flipped on the camera and I was like, "Hey, look how this turned out." And I got feedback in real time about like a physical book and the way it appeared in the real world. So I would say, yeah, if you were a marketer and you wanted to get into I would recommend downloading ChatGPT Pro, flipping on the voice feature, introduce yourself, tell them what you do, tell them to
hmm
remember it, tell them to remember it so it gets stored into persistent memory. Make sure you flip that on in settings.
mm,
It's called persistent memory, and just like a human, it's their memory.
yeah.
Currently, it's limited. I know OpenAI is going to be expanding it. I think they said this summer. Thank God. Yeah, and start building a relationship with it. Talk to it every day, just like you would a person. Tell it what you're working on, tell it your goals, and then ask questions. Be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, how can I do this? Or how can I do this better? How can I do this
Mhm.
easier? A lot of times there are like solutions and like ways that you can save yourself hours or be way more effective that like you don't even think of, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I've found too. I mean, I think you're right. In things you haven't even thought of, and you can just you ask a question, what you did, and it'll take you off on a tangent because you never thought about it, and then you realize that hey, that's important, and
Yep.
it wasn't even in your consideration, and then all of a sudden now you've gone down this path, and it's been, very helpful.
For
Listen,
marketing, oh, well, this one last thing, I'm
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, as a marketer though, remember when you're interacting with AI, like three things: goals, context, memory. You have to
Mm.
have those three or it's not going to work. You
Oh,
have three
fantastic.
together,
Goals,
you can make
context,
magic.
and memories.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's good advice. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, we've got to break off. So where can people reach you?
People can reach me on my website. It is gaymensfieldsguide.com, or they could pick up my book on Amazon. It's Gay Campgrounds by Upton Rand.
All right. So Gay Campgrounds by Upton Rands on Amazon. Definitely look for that. And then gaymensfieldguide.com.
Yeah.
And fantastic. I appreciate it. And Upton,
Hey,
thank
thanks
you
for
so
having me on.
much.
I love talking about this stuff. So
It's
anytime.
amazing. You are so right. There are so many interesting topics that you could talk about, and it's definitely accelerating and expanding so that there is a lot to actually talk about.
Yeah, it's an
Um,
exciting time.
yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, and for the audience, please stay tuned for many other videos in this series on the backstory of marketing and AI. And if you'd like to learn more about my upcoming book, please visit marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. And if you really like this interview, and I know you did, please rate it with 5 stars. Upton, thank you so much. So good to have you.
Thanks for having me, guy.